Syracuse football's most likely upset possibilities this season.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. Today's episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. On today's show, we are going over Syracuse football's most likely upset possibilities. I selected 6 games where I think it's pretty clear the Orange will be an underdog, and so we will rank the most likely upset possibilities to the least likely upset possibilities. The 6 names that I chose that on paper Syracuse is going to be an underdog for sure heading into the matchup: at Pitt, Louisville, SMU, Clemson, at NC State, and Notre Dame. That order that I just read to you all is the order Syracuse will play those teams. I will give you the order one more time, or at least the teams I should say: at Pitt, Louisville, SMU, Clemson, at NC State, and Notre Dame. We're going to start with most likely and end up with the least likely possibility of an upset for Syracuse football. Number 1, the most likely upset chance for the Orange in 2026, in my opinion, is Clemson on November 7th. Clemson at home. So that is a home game, obviously, for Syracuse. Last year, Syracuse beat Clemson on the road. It was the first time Syracuse ever won in Death Valley. And I believe that Clemson team was more talented than this year's Clemson team. And also with Syracuse, in their history, especially recently, they have played Clemson tough. Even when Clemson was at its peak, and I'd argue right now that they are far from their peak years. Not to say I don't have respect for Clemson. I certainly do. It's going to be a challenging game for Syracuse, but they are not necessarily the Clemson Tigers of 5-10 years ago. In 2022, Syracuse lost by a touchdown to Clemson. In 2021, Syracuse lost by a field goal. In 2020, the final score reads that Clemson dominated Syracuse, but if you actually paid attention to that game, it was a 1-win Syracuse squad on the road against a Trevor Lawrence-led Clemson team that was Clemson during their peak years. And that 1-win Syracuse team was within 6 points late in the third quarter of that game. In 2018, Syracuse came oh so close to knocking off Clemson for a second consecutive year. Speaking of which, in 2017, Syracuse pulled off a shocking upset. It was a 4-win Syracuse team against a college football playoff bound Clemson Tigers squad. Clemson's quarterback situation this year, for them at least, is not exactly ideal. Christopher Vizina is not a proven commodity. Sure, he could have a really nice season, but we are skeptical of that here on Locked On Syracuse. In fact, I would give Syracuse the quarterback edge in that matchup with Steve Angeli. So overall, when you combine all the factors, this is a home game for Syracuse. This is a Syracuse squad that recently has been very competitive against Clemson, even knocking them off a couple of times. The fact that Syracuse in this game against Clemson could have the quarterback edge. And if you have the quarterback edge, you certainly have a shot to pull off an upset. Syracuse beat this team a year ago on the road, and in my opinion, that team had more talent Clemson-wise. So, with all that said, when you look at all the upset possibilities on Syracuse's schedule, Clemson at home on November 7th is the best chance Syracuse has of pulling off an upset in 2026. Again, I still respect Clemson. I still believe they are a pretty good team. In fact, they are projected to be a pretty good team in the ACC this year. But again, with all the factors and all the possibilities, I think that Clemson is the most likely upset chance for Syracuse this upcoming season. What are your thoughts? Do you think that Clemson is Syracuse's best shot of pulling off an upset? Comment in the comment section below. The second most likely upset chance for Syracuse in 2026 is a road matchup against NC State on November 14th. And a couple of years ago, Syracuse beat NC State on the road, and that was when CJ Bailey was a true freshman for the Wolfpack. NC State is certainly going to be a challenge, at least on offense, for Syracuse. CJ Bailey is one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. If he ends up winning ACC Player of the Year, I would not be surprised. They got a ton of respect for him. Duke Stott, their emerging running back, he seems poised to take that next step. And I think that JoJo Trader is a breakout candidate for NC State, especially with an expanded role. Comes over from Miami, showed promise at Miami, but Miami's Miami. They are loaded. NC State, he's going to have a bigger role, and I think he can have a good year for the Wolfpack. Also, keep in mind that this is a road game for Syracuse. So it is not going to be easy to win on the road for the Orange. But I do think that with a healthy Steve Angeli, that Syracuse can move the ball against this NC State defense. And so if they're able to move the ball, just like NC State is probably going to be able to do against most teams they play this upcoming season, then naturally, I believe that this game could be a shootout. I could very easily see both Syracuse and NC State reaching at least 30 or more points. And so the game can simply come down to which team has the ball last. And so with that said, I do believe Syracuse can pull off an upset at NC State. I got respect for NC State. It's not going to be easy going on the road there. They got a very talented quarterback, and overall, their offense should be one of the better units in the ACC this upcoming season. But their defense, a little suspect, especially over the past couple of years. And you got a healthy Steve Angeli for Syracuse, who's probably going to be able to move the ball well against that NC State defense. So you could have a potential shootout, and if you have a potential shootout, it often could come down to simply who has the ball last. So the two most likely upset possibilities, in my opinion, for Syracuse football this upcoming season, number one is Clemson. Clemson, they play, Syracuse plays Clemson tough. It's a home game. NC State is a good team this year, especially on offense. It's a road game, which makes it a little bit more challenging than Clemson, in my opinion. But the Orange should be able to move the ball against that Wolfpack defense. What are your thoughts? Comment in the comment section below. Which games do you think that Syracuse can pull off an upset in this upcoming season? They're going to have to do it in order to make a bowl this upcoming season. Now, coming up on Locked On Syracuse, we will continue ranking the upset likelihood for Syracuse against some of their toughest opponents this upcoming season. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. Before the NFL season even kicks off, everyone is making predictions. Who's going to win the division, who makes the playoffs in either conference, who is lifting the Lombardi Trophy. On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Can the New York Jets win at least 6 games this upcoming season? The New York Jets are currently trading at a probability of 50% to win 6 or more games this upcoming season, meaning a $100 trade pays out to approximately $200 if the New York Jets are able to reach 6 or more wins. Again, a $100 trade, $200 payout. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Locked on Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. Let's continue ranking the upset possibilities for Syracuse football this upcoming season, ranging from most likely upsets to least likely upsets. We started with our top 2 most likely upset candidates. Number 1, Clemson at home. Number 2, NC State. I think they're both neck and neck in my opinion, but Clemson is a home game, so I give them a slight edge of an upset chance for Syracuse over NC State. But let's continue on with the list. Number 3, I have Louisville on October 17th, a home game for Syracuse. Louisville has been a very good team over the past half decade in the ACC, consistently amongst one of the better ACC teams in the conference. 2022, they had 8 wins. In 2023, it was their first year under current head coach Jeff Brom, where they won 10 games and reached the ACC title game, where they lost to Florida State. In 2024, they went 9-4, and in 2025, so this past season, they also went 9-4. And for this season, there's no reason not to believe that Louisville can't have a similar year to what they've had in the past. If you look at the ACC preseason media poll, which I get is not perfect, and it will not look the exact same by the time the season is over, but they are projected to finish 3rd in the conference this upcoming season. They have one of the best running backs in the country, Isaac Brown. And with Isaac Brown, there is a chance that he is sitting in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation at the end of the season. He is that good. He is that talented. If he stays on the field and he is healthy, he could be amongst the nation's leaders in rushing this upcoming season. It's going to be very hard for Syracuse to stop Isaac Brown, but at least contain Isaac Brown to a somewhat reasonable amount of yards. Clev Lubin was a 3rd-team All-ACC D-end for Louisville last year with 8.5 sacks, so he's a prolific pass rusher, could be one of the better pass rushers in the conference this upcoming year. He already was last year. Why can't he just do it again? And we'll see how good their quarterback is. It's projected to be Ohio State transfer Lincoln Kienholz, but look, that might be their one area you look at on their team and say, I'm not so sure. And look, that's the quarterback situation. So maybe Syracuse will eventually or prove to have the edge at quarterback. And if you have the edge at quarterback and you're at home, you certainly have a chance of pulling off an upset. But overall, this is a very good Louisville team, and it's going to be tough to win. For Syracuse, thankfully, it's at home, and their biggest potential weakness could be quarterback, and Syracuse's biggest possible strength could be quarterback. So I give them a slight chance to pull off this upset. Moving on to this next opponent here, one that Syracuse is quite familiar with, considering they played a season ago. Wasn't necessarily a fair fight because Syracuse had Ricky Collins and the other team had themselves good quarterback, good roster overall. And that's SMU on Halloween. It's a home game for Syracuse. I think SMU is very similar to Louisville, but they have a slightly higher ceiling than Louisville does. SMU made the college football playoff in 2024. That was their first year in the ACC. And not Syracuse, SMU this past season went 9-4. And this season, if you look at the ACC media poll, which again, like I mentioned with Louisville, is not perfect, but SMU is projected to be the 2nd best team in the conference this upcoming season. Rhett Lashley, their head coach, has proven to be one of the better head coaches in the conference. Kevin Jennings returns for his 3rd year as the starting quarterback of SMU. So there's a lot of continuity involved. If you have the same coach, same quarterback, prior success, usually that indicates they're going to have another strong year this upcoming season. They have a very good front, both on offense and defense, but on offense, they have 2 All-ACC offensive linemen, at least for the preseason team. PJ Williams and Josh Bates. SMU's secondary was a big weakness for them a season ago. They did bring in a few reinforcements in the portal this offseason, but who knows? Maybe that's where Syracuse can have a slight edge. If Syracuse proves with Steve Angeli that they can have a prolific passing attack like we saw in 2024 with Kyle McCord in the first 4 games with Angeli last season before the injury, then hey, if SMU has a weak secondary, Syracuse can certainly capitalize on that fact. But overall, with this SMU team, I don't think anybody would be surprised if SMU ended up winning the ACC. And yes, that includes Miami, who is the favorite to win the conference. I would still pick Miami to win the ACC this upcoming season, but I think SMU is also right there, and they could also find themselves in the college football playoff if all goes well for them. This is going to be a very challenging game for Syracuse, but Syracuse is at home. They have Steve Angeli, like we've talked about a number of times on this show. And if SMU has a little bit weaker of a secondary, like they had last season, then maybe Syracuse can take advantage of that and pull off an upset at home against the Mustangs. Do you think that Syracuse can beat Louisville and or SMU this upcoming season? Comment your thoughts right now in the comment section below. Coming up on Locked On Syracuse, the Orange's toughest challenges to pull off an upset this upcoming season. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Syracuse. There are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what event you want to attend. You pretty much know what event you want to go to. But it's actually getting the tickets for that event. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple, with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities that help you get to the events you want without the usual hassle. And my biggest pet peeve when I am buying tickets is when I think I have found a great deal and then I get all the way to the checkout and suddenly the final price looks completely different. And usually that means it's higher than what I was anticipating. Well, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets with their upfront pricing. So what you see is what you are going to pay over on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Locked On Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. Never say never. Any given Saturday, all the cliches you want to throw out there. But these two games for Syracuse football, in my opinion, are going to be extremely difficult to win. These are Syracuse's least likely upset possibilities. At Pitt on September 17th. Why is Pitt such a tough game for Syracuse to win? Well, I don't think that Pitt is Syracuse's second best opponent, at least on paper. On paper, it's probably middle of the pack when you look at all of Syracuse's opponents this upcoming season. I think Louisville's better on paper. I think SMU is better on paper. I think even Clemson is better on paper. So why is Pitt ranked where I have them ranked? It's all the circumstances around it. That's just going to make it very difficult to win. Number one, it's a road game for Syracuse. Number two, it's on a Thursday off a short week. And Syracuse is playing Cal the Saturday before. So Syracuse is playing an ACC team on Saturday, and then they have 5 days, and then they're playing on the road against Pitt. Now, I understand that that is not huge travel, but it is still short week on the road after playing a conference opponent. So that is not easy, no matter what opponent you're playing in the ACC. If it's at Pitt or it's Boston College, that is not an easy game for Syracuse to win. Also, Syracuse, historically, they really struggle playing Pitt, particularly on the road. In fact, I researched this right before the show. The last time Syracuse won at Pitt, you have to go all the way back to 2001. Since then, Syracuse has played at Pitt a total of 11 times. They have lost those games by an average margin of defeat of 16 points. So when they travel to Pitt, ever since that victory in 2001, they usually lose by about 2 touchdowns, actually more than 2 touchdowns. As far as this year's Pitt team, since it's not all about history, you have to look at the current opponent. They're not supposed to be amazing. Pitt is projected to be 9th in the preseason ACC media poll, but I think they have a pretty high ceiling. Not saying they're going to win the conference, but I definitely think they're one of those teams that when you look at the preseason poll, you can say that's a team that might overachieve. Why? Go look at their quarterback. That's just one example. Go look at their quarterback, Mason Heinschel. I think, in my opinion, he could have a pretty big year for Pitt as a true freshman last season. Mason Heinschel in 10 games, I think 9 starts, 2,300 passing yards, 16 touchdowns to 8 interceptions on 64% completion percentage. Again, that's as a true freshman for Mason Heinschel. It's not a guarantee that he is going to get better. We see players in all sports, no matter what level, it looks like they're going to be really good, and then they just plateau, or they even sometimes regress. It happens. Development is not always linear or exponential. Who knows? You never quite know. But with Mason Heinschel, he had a really big true freshman season. He could have a very good true sophomore season as well. Now, Syracuse, they fared quite well against Mason Heinschel last year. Results take that away and how the team actually did. They lost to Pitt. But last year, they held Mason Heinschel to 13 and 24 passing, so that's slightly better than 50%. 140 yards through the air, that's not impressive. No touchdowns, 1 interception. But also, if memory serves correct from that game, especially if you watched it on television, if you were in person at the game, you probably didn't notice it. But they showed it on the broadcast. If memory serves correct, Mason Heinschel actually got hurt in that game. He hurt his shoulder, I think, towards the end of the first half, and Pitt was in control for most of the game, so he didn't have to do a whole lot. It was just be conservative, don't turn the ball over a million times, and you're going to be fine against Syracuse, as we all know from last season. So overall with Pitt, is Pitt Syracuse's second toughest opponent on paper? In my opinion, no. There are stronger, more talented teams that Syracuse is going to face this upcoming season. But when you factor everything in, the fact that Pitt could actually be a pretty good team this upcoming year, so let's not disregard that. But also, it's a short week on the road after playing an ACC team, and also the fact that Syracuse really struggles on the road against Pitt. Have not won there since 2001. They've played 11 times since on the road at Pitt, and they've lost those games by an average margin of defeat of 16 points. That's why this game is going to be extremely difficult for Syracuse to win. That's why when you're looking at all the upset possibilities for the Orange this upcoming season, I put Pitt right up there against anyone else, not named this upcoming opponent we're about to talk about. Speaking of which, the toughest game for Syracuse this upcoming season, the least likely shot of pulling off an upset, is Notre Dame at home, November 28th, the final game of the regular season. And hopefully, I've said this a couple of times on this show, that this is a game for Syracuse that ultimately does not matter. Hopefully it doesn't. If we're being optimistic, hey, hopefully Syracuse has enough wins to where, or at least in the conference, to where we already know if they're playing in the ACC championship game. That would be great. I would love if Syracuse, you would love if Syracuse was in the conference title game, and a game against Notre Dame would not impact the ACC standings at all. But overall, the odds of Syracuse actually winning this game, pulling off an upset, are incredibly low. Syracuse has not beaten Notre Dame since 2008. Since then, they have played Notre Dame a total of 6 times. So not the biggest sample in the world, but still that's 6 games since 2008. And here are the results. Rather than giving you averages, let me just read you the results of these matchups. 2014, Notre Dame won 31-15. 2016, Notre Dame won 50-33. 2018, that was a good Syracuse team. Did not matter. Notre Dame beat them 36-3. 2020, Notre Dame won 45-21. 2022, 41-24 Notre Dame. And this past year, I'll say it once, I'll say it very low, 70-7 Notre Dame. Now this year, Notre Dame enters as a top 5 team in the country. They have star players everywhere. CJ Carr, Leonard Moore, and plenty of others. I know that they lost some pieces, but it's Notre Dame. They churn out players. They are a factory of sending players to the National Football League. Lose Jeremiah Love, doesn't matter. They got a running back there that I'm sure would probably be the best player in Syracuse. Probably. That's just how Notre Dame is. They're that good. There's a reason why when we talk about Steve Angeli on the show and we hold him in such high regard, it's because Notre Dame gave Steve Angeli a legitimate chance to be their starting quarterback. They wouldn't have done that if they didn't see legitimate potential in Steve Angeli. Also for this game, you have to think about it from a Notre Dame standpoint. I don't see how this game does not matter at all for Notre Dame. Like, one of the possibilities of Syracuse pulling off an upset is, well, what if Notre Dame's resting starters? I don't think that that's going to be the case. Notre Dame entering this game is either going to be playing for college football playoff seeding, or if something goes wrong for them in the regular season before Syracuse, they could be playing for their college football playoff lives. So in all likelihood, they're not going to be resting starters, at least at the beginning portion of the game against Syracuse. So we can't fall back on that. We can't be like, well, they're going to be playing their 2s and 3s against Syracuse, so hey, that gives Syracuse a better shot at winning. No, they're probably going to be playing all their 1s, at least at the beginning part of that game. So overall, look, upsets happen. I'm not telling you that Syracuse has absolutely positively zero chance of beating Notre Dame. There's a reason why games are played. It's not played on paper, it's played on the field. We have seen Notre Dame get upset a few times over the past couple of seasons. We saw a 7-win Northern Illinois team go on the road and beat Notre Dame in 2024. And Notre Dame that season did not lose again until the national championship game against Ohio State. That happened a couple years ago. Early in the season, they lost to Northern Illinois. Upsets can happen. We even saw Marshall beat Notre Dame. We saw a 3-win Stanford team beat Notre Dame in 2022. So yes, is it theoretically possible? Have we seen it happen before in college football where a major upset happens? And could it be Syracuse over Notre Dame? Sure. Am I picking it? No. But is it possible? Theoretically, yes. But in my opinion, when you look at all the possible upset chances for Syracuse on their schedule this upcoming season, Notre Dame, even at home, is the least likely chance for Syracuse of pulling off an upset. Comment your thoughts right now in the comments section below. Agree with me or disagree with me on that. So overall, let's go over the order one more time. Most likely to least likely upset possibilities for Syracuse football. Number 1, the most likely upset chance for Syracuse is Clemson on November 7th at home. Number 2 is at NC State on November 14th. Number 3 is Louisville on October 17th. Number 4 is SMU on October 31st. Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. Number 5 at Pitt on September 17th. Just to reiterate again, I don't think that Pitt is the second toughest opponent on Syracuse's schedule. But when you factor everything in, Pitt is going to be a really difficult test for Syracuse to really see what they're made of early in the season. And number 6, least likely possibility is Notre Dame at home, final game of the regular season on November 28th. Our next episode of Locked on Syracuse will likely be this upcoming Tuesday. We are going to update Syracuse basketball's strengths, weaknesses, talk about the rotation for the Orange after their recent addition of Amari Monroe in the transfer portal. So stick with me here on Locked on Syracuse for the next episode on Tuesday. For now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked on Syracuse. And we'll see you all again soon.